Hey, good morning. Professor Silverman here for Philosophy 326. I wanted to give you some thoughts on the Batman movie. Batman the Dark Knight, I consider it to be the most interesting of the superhero movies to analyze. A couple of observations. We are given three main viewpoints from three main characters to analyze. Ethically, the most interesting one is actually Batman, because he actually shows some utilitarian tendencies, but also some duty-centered sort of Kantian tendencies. So he's much more flexible in his choices than most superheroes, as to how far he'll go to get the right result. So in that way, he's a lot more like results-based ethics. In fact, if you watch this movie carefully, he's shown as violating several traditional principles of the use of force. He tortures one of the mobsters. That's usually a huge no-no. He's a vigilante. He's not under anyone else's authority. This is also thought to be a dangerous idea, something that's potentially setting him up to be abusive. He lies. He violates international boundaries. He goes to Hong Kong, essentially without permission. In a certain sense, kidnaps one of their nationals. Again, traditionally, the countries have not liked such actions. And towards the end, he systematically hacks into everybody's cell phone in New York so that he can spy more effectively on the Joker. Huge invasion of privacy. So he's like a utilitarian in that he violates many of the traditional rules of the uses of force, of just use of force. On the other hand, like a Kantian or a duty-based thinker, he's got a very firm no killing rule, no intentional killing, and it's implied that somehow he manages to never accidentally kill anybody either, despite all this use of force. Somewhat, a little more strangely, he has this, what comes across as a little bit arbitrary, this no gun rule. And here's why I claim that that's a little bit arbitrary. A gun is just a means. So there's lots of ways to accomplish the same means. So Batman is a character with with a rule against guns, but he has no problem showing up with a tank and shooting grenades at people. So that's a little bit weird. And it's also a little bit weird. He won't use a gun, but he'll throw sharp knives at people until they submit. So, presumably either of these other two things is just as dangerous and could kill somebody just as easily. But anyway, I think the thing about the no gun rule is perhaps the idea is it's too easy for an average untrained person to grab a gun and end up killing people. Maybe that's the point of the no gun rule. But in any case, like a utilitarian, he wants results, and he's willing to bend the rules to get there. But like a Kantian, he still has certain rules he just won't violate. Some other observations. Harvey Dent has a philosophy. He is the White Knight. They call him that at least three times in the movie. And the contrast is Batman as the Dark Knight. So Harvey Dent is the one who is the White Knight who tries to accomplish these just results, but by strictly staying within the rules. And his broader character, it suggested that he's a little too inflexible, a little too control hungry. So, for example, that's the significance of the two-headed coin, where he constantly makes his own luck. So you've got these two competing, seriously ethical viewpoints. Batman, who leans a little results-based. Harvey Dent, who's a little inflexible, a little more duty-based. And they confront the Joker. Now, the Joker as a villain is a far more interesting villain than most characters, because he has a philosophy, a philosophy of anarchy, of chaos, and B, his motivations are far more interesting than an average villain. He doesn't just want money or revenge or something like that. There's a philosophical point he's trying to make. Now, a few comments about the Joker. This is a very interesting interpretation of the Joker, and if you weren't at least a teenager when this movie came out, you wouldn't quite get some of the context, at least not easily or obviously. But the Joker is very intentionally presented as a kind of terrorist, sort of random killings, violence for the sake of violence. He makes an Al Qaeda style terrorist execution video. Um, and the point is that the Joker is a chaotic figure who is sort of a principled anarchist, and he wants to prove that everybody, uh, if put in the situation of anarchy, would be sort of an immoralist of sorts. Which is why he says, "I'm not a monster, I'm just ahead of the curve." In other words, he wants to say, everybody's really like this. And that's the point of the whole boat scene at the end for the two fairies, trying to suggest that the Joker is wrong. Um, One final comment about the movie is that a lot of this takes place in the context of the post 9/11 war on terror and invasion of Iraq. And the things that Batman does, a lot of them look very similar to the things that America was accused of doing in the war on terror. Things like violating national boundaries. Maybe we were torturing. Maybe we were systematically spying. I mean, domestic wiretaps skyrocketed during this time. And a lot of people were very concerned about this. So, one potential reading of the movie is that it's a kind of apologetic for America during the war on terror. And so one interpretation of the message is something like this: when confronted with a sort of an irrational, massive threat like systematic terrorism, that the moral flexibility of someone like Batman is better equipped to deal with it than someone inflexible like Harvey Dent, which is why Harvey Dent ultimately succumbs to the temptations of the Joker and gives into chaos himself. All right, so those are some thoughts and observations on Batman: The Dark Knight. What did you think? Make sure you've posted your thoughts on the discussion board. Thank you very much. See you again soon.